promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Banjul, 1 p.m. in Lagos. Good afternoon. Welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. Here are the top stories. Senegal's Constitutional Council blocks a parliamentary bill seeking to regulate special state funds amid tensions between the executive and National Assembly.
It's a show that between the executive branch and the legislative branch around this biggest political battle of the moment, these special funds will intensify.
In Guinea, shock grips the population as authorities discover 6 bodies in mass grave southeast of Conakry. Reactions trailed the detention of Liberia's former Vice President Joel Howard Taylor in connection with cocaine trafficking.
The government has lost all of the big cases brought against them, and this is one big case that they will lose again.
Even if former President Weah is caught, if found guilty, let him go to prison for that.
U.S. Africa Futures Summit underway in Addis Ababa with discussions on key sectors, including Africa's critical minerals. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Augustine Bill Coley.
Thank you for being with us. We begin in Senegal as the country's Constitutional Council has blocked a parliamentary bill seeking to regulate the use of special state funds. The decision was handed down Tuesday under the leadership of the Council President Ousmane Diagne. Prime Minister Amadou Al-Amino Mohamed Lo had referred the legislation to the Council after it was unanimously approved by the National Assembly. The ruling follows another setback for the National Assembly after the Council in July this year invalidated a separate reform initiative for constitutional and procedural violations. Abdullahi Hassan reports.
At the heart of the dispute was the question of whether Parliament could legislate on the procedures governing the execution, commitment, liquidation, payment, and control of public expenditure. But the government argued that these matters fall within the regulatory powers of the executive as provided for by the Constitution and the Organic Law on Finance laws. Judges at the Constitutional Council ruled that the legislature does not have the authority to create an independent category of public funds or establish its legal framework. The Council also found that several provisions, notably Articles 3 and 4, concern matters falling under the regulatory domain. These provisions covered the implementation procedures and accounting rules for special appropriations. Because the provisions deemed unconstitutional were considered inseparable from the rest of the bill, the Council therefore declared the entire text inadmissible. Analysts say this decision could have political and institutional implications for the regulatory powers between Parliament and executive branch of government. Mamadou Cho is a Senegalese political analyst.
So it's a show that between the executive branch of power and the legislative branch around this biggest political battle of the moment, these special funds will intensify. Because what Ousmane Sonko, the Speaker of the House, had made clear that they should keep going on to voting laws to bring more transparency in how Senegalese taxpayers' money is being used, mostly by the president, surrounding these special funds. Even if we can consider it's a defeat for the National Assembly, we should expect in the coming days other laws in the same range.
The Constitutional Council's decision comes amid tensions between the executive branch and the National Assembly, dominated by the PASTEF party. It also follows the adoption of a proposed constitutional law modifying, among other things, the rules relating to the declaration and publication of the assets of the President of the Republic and several high-ranking state officials.
Abdullahi Hassan fight that report. In Guinea, shock grips the population after 6 bodies were discovered in a mass grave in the Fokaria prefecture, about 100 kilometers southeast of the capital, Conakry. The bodies were found on Monday by young people collecting firewood in a forest near a village in the Alasoya sub-prefecture. Although their identities remain unknown, the victims, all men, were seen blindfolded with their hands bound. Local authorities and the public prosecutor visited the scene before the bodies were examined and taken to hospital in the Fukaria Prefecture. According to the authorities, an investigation has been opened to establish the circumstances and the timing of the deaths, as well as identify the victims. The discovery has sparked concern among residents, as local sources also say a separate mass grave counting 4 bodies was found in the same prefecture last October. Elsewhere in neighboring Liberia, former Vice President Joy Howard Taylor is currently at the Monrovia Central Prison after making her first court appearance on charges linked to an alleged international cocaine trafficking network. The Monrovia City Court ordered her detention on Tuesday in connection with the $317 million drug case. Prosecutors allege that Howard Taylor maintains link with members of an international cocaine network and agreed to the use of Liberia as a transit point for cocaine trafficking to Europe. Monrovia's correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
At the Monrovia City Court on Tuesday, the state lawyers alleged that Joel Howard Taylor met with members of the illicit drug network in Dakar and received payments totaling at least $135,000. The government says it has significant evidence, including travel records, audio recordings, and witness testimonies. But Madam Howard Taylor rejected the allegations. Meanwhile, some Liberians say the charges should now be tested in court, while others want the government to go further and establish who financed, facilitated, and protected the alleged drug network.
We all know statistic-wise, the government has lost all of the big cases brought against them, and this is one big case that they will lose again against the former vice president.
Even if former President Weah is caught, let him be investigated. If found guilty, let him go to prison for that.
Liberians no longer trust the security sector because even the entire police, they are all there involved with cocaine trade.
The former vice president of George Weah's administration is facing 9 offenses, including illicit trafficking, criminal conspiracy, criminal facilitation, money laundering, and the unlicensed importation and exploitation of controlled substances. Her lawyers have not commented on the latest decision. After her appearance in court, Joel Howard Taylor was taken to the Monrovia Central Prison, where she remains pending further legal proceedings. Political parties and other stakeholders are cautioning the judiciary against a politically selective investigation into cocaine allegations in Liberia. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Meanwhile, Ghana's Vice President, Professor Jean Nana Opoku-Agyeman, is calling on African countries to break away from dependency and take greater ownership of the continent's development. She argues that Africa must move beyond talking about the Africa we want to building an Africa we work for. The Ghanaian Vice President made the call Tuesday in Kigali, Rwanda, at the African Mindset Research Forum, where African leaders and stakeholders are discussing a new mindset and approaches to tackling the continent's long-standing development challenges. Elikplim Awuku reports.
Professor Opoku-Agyeman says Africa's development difficulties cannot simply be blamed on a lack of policies, resources, plans, or human potential. She argues that the continent has the people and resources needed to transform its economies, but must develop the confidence and commitment to rely more on its own capabilities. The Vice President also challenged the perception that Africa lacks the expertise required to solve its problems. She questioned why African countries cannot deliberately invest in training their young people to become the experts needed to drive sustainable development.
We need to go back to the fundamentals. Imagine of a continent that can go into negotiations with the confidence and the willingness to do what it is that helps our continents to grow. We should move ourselves from a position where we think others must do things for us. No, and it's about time.
The Ghanaian Vice President wants African governments to invest in their citizens, strengthen institutions, and create opportunities for innovation and enterprise.
We want to do your budget. How much is somebody is bringing you? How much is the person not bringing you? All that time wasting, spend it on how much you can give yourself. We've done a lot. We need to be focused on the vision. And the vision is to have the Africa we want.
Professor Opoku-Agyeman urged participants at the forum to move beyond discussions and commit to building an Africa that is self-reliant, innovative, and capable of determining its own development path. For WADR, Elit Limauku, Accra.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now, the fourth U.S.-Africa Futures Summit is underway in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It brings together policymakers and diplomats, including civil society leaders, researchers, and members of the African diaspora who are discussing the future of U.S.-Africa relations. Organizers include the Open Society Foundation's OFS, Humanity United, Global Futures Collaborative, and the Institute for Security Studies in Africa. This year's meeting is the first time the summit has been held on the African continent after previous editions in Washington. Christopher Aticho tells us more.
5 key areas are dominating discussions at the U.S.-Africa Future Summit. The first is Africa's role in increasingly multipolar world. Participants are examining how African countries can turn their growing diplomatic influence into greater bargaining power and ensure the continent is not simply a battleground for competition among other global powers. The second focus is development cooperation. Discussions look at the changing nature of international aid, the need for greater domestic resource mobilization, and ways to build partnerships that support African priorities while reducing dependency. Critical minerals also form another major theme of the event as participants deliberate on how African countries can move beyond exporting raw materials and develop local processing, manufacturing, skills and technology. Additionally, migration, mobility and the role of the African diaspora are being examined. Organizers say the discussion should move beyond border controls and irregular migration to recognize the contribution of mobility to trade, innovation, investment, and regional integration. The final session will focus on peace and security, including conflicts in Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Delegates will debate how international support can strengthen rather than replace African-led peace initiatives and regional institutions. The broader goal of the U.S. Future Africa Summit is to develop practical recommendations for a stronger U.S.-Africa partnership while giving African countries a greater voice in shaping their place in a changing global order.
Christopher Aticho with those details. The Gambia and Senegal have launched their first joint steering committee to strengthen cooperation in telecommunications, ICT, and the digital economy. The initiative was launched Tuesday in Banjul, less than 2 months after the two countries signed a landmark memorandum of understanding in Dakar. Officials from both countries say the partnership will help improve digital connectivity, strengthen coordination in the telecommunications sector, and deepen collaboration in the rapidly growing digital economy. Rose Samarakates reports.
Speaking at the ceremony, Senegal's Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Samba Diouf, says the establishment of the steering committee demonstrates the commitment of both countries to turning the agreement reached in Dakar into practical results.
We are here today to strengthen our cooperation in the ICT area, and we are here to set up what we signed in Senegal the past June to make it happen. In the past few years, we had so many attempts on this area, and actually it's the time to execute it. So we are here to set a plan. We are here to execute what we can do now with the two countries.
The committee is expected to provide a framework for regular consultations and coordinated actions between the two countries, particularly in areas such as digital infrastructure, telecommunications regulation, ICT development, and the digital transformation for public services. For the Gambia, the initiative is also seen as an opportunity to deepen technical cooperation with Senegal while creating new opportunities for innovation, investment, and digital entrepreneurship. Gambia's Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Lamin Jabi, says the committee marks a new phase in the long-standing relationship between the two neighboring countries.
If you look at us in terms of how we have been bound together as people, the same society, same languages, same culture, tradition, it is important that that infrastructure we have in our two respective countries, the services we deliver there, the applications that we are actually encouraging for digital economy creation. Those ones we have to make sure that there is a degree of alignment, harmonization for their impact on our citizens positively.
The initiative comes as the Gambia and Senegal continue efforts to strengthen bilateral relations, with digital cooperation emerging as an important area for economic development and regional integration. For WADR, Rose Samara Cates, Banjul.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal, and online at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Senegal's Constitutional Council blocks a parliamentary bill seeking to regulate special state funds amid tensions between the executive and National Assembly. In Guinea, shock grips the population as authorities discovered 6 bodies in mass grave southeast of Conakry. Reactions trailed the detention of Liberia's former Vice President Joe Howard Taylor in connection with cocaine trafficking. U.S. Africa Futures Summit underway in Addis Ababa with discussions on key sectors, including Africa's critical minerals. We also have the guest interview and the sports news. Please stay with us.
Bringing you the facts beyond the headlines. From Monrovia, Liberia, this is Abraham Parker. Stay tuned to WADR 94.9 FM, Dakar.
Thank you for staying with us. We turn to the Central Sahel, particularly Niger, where supermarket owners have until December 31, 2026 to comply with a new ban on plastic bags. Authorities are urging businesses to prioritize environmentally friendly alternatives, including biodegradable bags, paper packaging, and reusable containers. From January 1, 2027, violators will face penalties under existing regulations. However, the move is drawing reactions from stakeholders in Niger's environmental sector. Imo Edit gives the details in this report.
Beginning January 2027, only biodegradable bags, paper packaging, or reusable containers will be accepted in the city of Niamey, replacing plastic bags. Authorities in the Nigerian capital say they want to protect the environment and combat plastic pollution. Boubacar Loge Zakari, a research professor at the Faculty of Agronomy of Abdul Mumuni University in Niamey, reacts to the decision.
For me, the decision to move towards the end of non-biodegradable plastic bags in Niamey is relevant, but its success will depend less on the introduction itself than on the ability to enforce the regulations and to support key industry players.
Nigerian environmentalists who welcome the government's measure are proposing sustainable alternatives to completely ban plastic bags nationwide. Sani Ayuba is the executive director of the NGO Young Volunteers for the Environment.
First, we must support local producers. We have women, young people, and artisans capable of making bags, baskets, and various types of packaging. Therefore, we must facilitate their access to financing, equipment, raw materials, and especially training. We must address the price, because if a plastic bag costs significantly less than a reusable bag, consumers will naturally continue to choose plastic bags. Therefore, the government can implement tax or financial incentives during a transition period for companies that produce environmentally friendly alternatives.
Nigerian environmental advocates are calling for the implementation of sustainable alternative solutions to enforce the ban on plastic bags.
Imo Edit with the details of a report filed by Yakuba Bibulai in Niamey. In Africa, traditionally female-dominated professions practiced by men are still viewed negatively. Awareness campaigns continue across the continent to dismantle these preconceived nations. In Togo, the story remains the same. Sankula Janko tells us more in this report.
For the past few years, Dodo has been running his own business in Lomé, Togo. His chosen path is a professional makeup. The young man primarily works with women. It's a profession that suffers in Togo from societal stigma, which often labels it as a job reserved for women. Even within his own family, Dodo fights to gain acceptance.
I had difficulty pursuing this career because when I decided to learn a trade, I said I was going to learn hairdressing. I remember I had an older brother, the eldest in the family. He said, no, it's not a man's job, that I don't know where I come from. Where did I get that from? And back then, there weren't many men in that profession. So he said no. And that almost ruined my life, because when he said no, I went off on adventure with nothing. And then I came back. I recharged my batteries. That's when I started learning.
In addition to professional makeup, Dodo also does comedy through his humorous content. He tries to deconstruct gender norms and promote a more open vision of masculinity.
I'm going to take this opportunity to ask people not to judge. Not everyone is the same. Really, let everyone be in their own world. Let them express what they want to do. I can offer more than you can imagine. Don't judge people.
The professional makeup artist is now inviting African society to move beyond the traditional categories of men's and women's jobs by placing greater emphasis on the skills and aspirations of each individual.
Sankula Janko with those details.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this afternoon is Mamadou Cho, a Senegalese political analyst. In this interview, he analyzes the political and institutional implications of the Constitutional Council's decision to block a parliamentary bill seeking to regulate the use of special state funds. This decision was taken on Tuesday. It comes amid heightened tensions between the executive and the legislative branches of government. Please listen.
This decision coming from the Constitutional Council can be seen as the same council took a few weeks ago. This is the second time the executive branch, led by President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, is bringing the case to the Constitutional Council, and the council is following the president's willingness. So it's a show that between the executive branch of power and the legislative branch around this biggest political battle of the moment, these special funds will, intensify. Because what Ousmane Sonko, the Speaker of the House, had made it clear that they should keep going on to voting laws to bring more transparency in how Senegalese taxpayers' money is being used, mostly by the president, surrounding these special funds. So that's why, even if we can consider it's a defeat for the National Assembly, we should expect in the coming days other laws in the same range.
What are the political or institutional implications of the Constitutional Council drawing a clear line between the Parliament's legislative powers and the executive's regulatory powers?
This decision coming from the Constitutional Council made clear that the National Assembly has no right to look at these special funds. So since the National Assembly is the only one who allowed the budget of the executive, how we go forward after this decision? Because if this political battle intensify around this issue, we can maybe see some big changes in the way, the executive and the legislative branch was trying to dialogue under the former regime. And as we are seeing, since President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Ousmane Sonko part ways at the end of May. So everyone is at the head of a power for the president, the executive, and for the speaker, Usman Sonko, the legislative branch, and everyone want to show each other that he will use this power to gain what he can gain for the branch he's leading.
How do you think this will affect the parliament's ability to legislate on the management of public funding?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big debate now, because what we are seeing in all democracies, it is the National Assembly which is voting the budget, which allow the executive branch to do his job. If this Constitutional Council decided that the National Assembly for this kind of special fund has no right, what it does mean? We can be in a area coming from the National Assembly in the future. I mean, telling the Constitutional Council that you told us in your decision that we have no right to do this. And for the maybe next year budget, which the parliamentary session will start pondering on this budget in mid-October up to mid-December. So we can wait for some kind of surprises coming from this decision, because nobody knows what is lying ahead. And as we know, Usman Sonko is a politician, so he can use this decision maybe to try to have some trick for the executive branch of power led by President Bassirou Diomaye Faye.
Mamadou Cho is a Senegalese political analyst. Now, Sankule, the sportive Janko, joins us with the latest news in the world of sports. Hello, Sankule.
Hello, good afternoon, Augustine.
Welcome. We are beginning with athletics.
Yes, right? Indeed, you're right. We're beginning with athletics because Kenyan champions Helen Obiri and Benson Kirupto are set to defend their New York Marathon titles in November 1st, 2026. Well, Obiri, a two-time champion, will face Olympic champion Stefan Hassan of the Netherlands and Ethiopia's 2022 World Cup Gaiton Gebreselassie. In the men's race, Crypto will take on Ethiopian contenders Deresi Galeta and Mohamed Essa as they look to return the title in the dramatic finish this year.
Interesting. But there is a news about hosting the AFCON 2028.
Yes, absolutely. From the marathon course, of course, football on the pitch, Ethiopia has officially entered the race to host the 2028 Africa Cup of Nations. While the government-backed bid promises readiness to stage the tournament, although the infrastructure remains a concern. Well, Ethiopia last hosted the AFCON in 1976 and will face competition from joint bid by Botswana, Namibia, South Africa and Zimbabwe.
It's becoming so attractive, especially when we have the Central Saharan states also bidding for, is it 2032?
No, it's 2028.
2028?
Yes,
the Central Sahel?
Oh, yes, the Central Sahel, that's 2032, yes, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but what's about a big news? An African player has been signed by a big club in Europe.
Absolutely, yes, because there is a big transfer news from England, Augustine, where Manchester United have signed a Cameroon international Carlos Baleba from Brighton for a reported £70 million. But the 22-year-old has agreed a 5-year deal with an option for an additional year. 22. I mean, we're talking about £70 million.
That's a big news for the Cameroonian. Thank you, Sankule. We'll keep you posted in our subsequent newscast for more. And that's it on this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. Many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Joacino Capagomis for the technical support. I am Augustine Curley. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Graft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.